Hi everyone, so this is a video lesson on how to find the denominator using SOHCAHTOA. Okay, the first question here is a starter based on finding a side, so we can please complete that first and then come back on to see the starter solution. As always with these questions, whether we are finding a normal side, whether we're finding a denominator like we are today, or whether we're finding an angle, the first step is to label the sides. In this triangle, if we go from the angle through the triangle, we get to the opposite side. The hypotenuse is across from the right angle and the adjacent is on the bottom. We are using the phrase SOHCAHTOA and that helps us choose which ratio to use. We know the O because we are given an X at the O, and we know the H as that's got a 12 attached to it, so we're using sine. In this case then, sine x is opposite over hypotenuse. Sine x is the angle, remember, so sine 47 equals x over 12. And one calculation into your calculator, 12 multiplied by sine 47. Okay, so if we take that then, 12 times sine 47, we will end up with 8.8 metres as an answer. Okay, so today's intentions are very, very similar. We are still finding a missing side, so back to the original stuff that we did with SOHCAHTOA, but we need to find this side when it is the denominator. Some of you might have noticed, just like we did in the starter, that every question we have done so far when we've found a side has been the numerator, the top part of the question. That's where our x has been. In this case then, it is going to be on the bottom of the fraction that we have to find that x. So the first triangle that we're going to look at is this one here. As before, we are still using SOHCAHTOA and we are still labelling our sides. So in this case, the opposite is where the 8 is, the hypotenuse is where x is, and the adjacent left over, we are given O and H, so again we're using sine. Now this first step is the same no matter whether we find a side, an angle, or a denominator. This next step is the one that changes things a little bit. So x is the angle, sine 52 in this case. O this time is 8, and the x is our denominator. So we've got to do a little bit of rearranging here. Okay. Now the best way to think about this is to think about the fact that the sine 52 is on top of a 1. Okay, all a fraction means is the top thing divided by the bottom thing. So any whole number, any whole term, if we put it over 1, we can create a fraction from that. So sine 52 over 1 is equal to 8 over x. And the easiest way to rearrange this is to cross multiply. Now we could cross multiply also the 8 and the 1, okay, as long as we switch them over and it goes through the equal sign, that's alright. But we are just going to do it with the sine 52 and the x. Now what happens when I cross multiply here is that I end up with the x going on the left hand side and 8 stays where it is and the sine 52 gets replaced. Okay. Now that process is called cross multiplying, and it is mathematically sound to be able to do that if we are crossing those things over the equal sign. Okay, essentially what we're doing is we're timesing both sides by x to get it up onto the left hand side, then we're dividing both sides by the sine 52 to get that down the bottom. Therefore the calculation that goes in the calculator this time is 8 divided by sine 52. Now remember, you can use this online calculator, so that would be in here, and the calculation we wanted to do was 8 divided by sine 52. That equals, and we get 10.2 as our answer. 10.2, we are working with a side, so it's centimetres this time. The next one is very similar, possibly just a different function that we'll have to use. Label the sides first of all, opposite here, hypotenuse, and then adjacent. Writing down SOHCAHTOA. We've got the opposite and the adjacent this time, so we are using tan, and that is tan x equals opposite over adjacent. X is the angle, remember, so that's tan of 46. The opposite is 12, and the adjacent has an x on it, so that's what I'm trying to find. From here, we can think of tan 46 as tan 46 over 1, and we can cross multiply over the equal sign. So I'm just going to change that so it looks a bit more like the fraction, okay, rather than the wee squinty fraction. And you can see exactly where those two terms are going to go. So in this case, x is equal to 12 over tan 46. And if we pop that into the calculator, 12 divided by tan 46, we will get the answer. Okay, so you can go over to the online calculator. Notice we're using the normal functions. That will give us 11.6 centimetres. So when we're finding the angle, we use the tan minus 1. Today we're finding still a side, it's just the opposite side to what we were used to finding, so we have to use the normal function. Lastly, now you might have guessed here, I have given you one with sine, one with tan. This last one is going to be the cos. Okay, so we've got SOHCAHTOA, we've got an A and a H, so it will be cos. Cos x is adjacent over hypotenuse. X is the angle, cos 38. The adjacent here is 15 over x. Think of the left hand side as over 1. We can cross multiply, and therefore x will be 15 over cos 38. As a calculation, that is 15 divided by cos 38, and I've run out of space, so I'll go over here to the left. 15 divided by cos 38 is 19.0, so just 19 to one decimal place, and we're working in centimetres. Okay, so little breakdown of this. The first step is exactly the same. Label the triangle, find what ratio you have to use. This bit is the new step here, where these different terms have to go. But if we've labelled the triangle correctly, that should be pretty straightforward for us. And then the main thing here is the rearranging part, so that we get the correct calculation in our calculator. Okay, now I've left these ones till last because they are the most involved ones. They're the most, maybe not trickiest, but the ones that take a lot of time to wrap your head around. Okay, so that's why I've left them till last. But you will see a worksheet on questions like this. We'll continue it over Thursday and Friday, just to give us a good idea of how this works. Okay, thank you everyone, and I hope you got on okay. Just let me know if you need any extra help or any extra examples.